Typically, we are harder on others than ourselves when it comes to bad habits. They can be annoyances like someone who starts cracking their knuckles right next to you, or a friend of yours who you love very much but who constantly drops the word like into like every other sentence. Hey, but you've got one too. Everyone has at least one bad habit that they can't shake. Or can they? Welcome to Wellcast. This week, we took another viewer suggestion from Frantic Cow, who wrote in asking for a video on breaking bad habits. So today, you guessed it, we're going to examine why it's so darn difficult to give up chowing down on junk food, or chowing down on your fingernails. We've also got a 4-step method for overcoming your biggest vice. Are you ready? First and foremost, how do bad habits even form? Studies by the National Institute of Health point to 2 main reasons. The first reason is repetition. If you do something often enough, say you twirl your pencil during class, your brain decides it can stop wasting precious neurons thinking about it. So it checks out and goes on vacation. You could be twirling your pencil through AP English, Social Studies, Algebra, and Trig without even thinking about it. The other way bad habits are formed is through positive reinforcement, which sounds like a really good thing, but it can be dangerous. Let's talk about that energy drink that you insist on sucking back when you're up late studying. Gives you a nice boost of energy, and it helps you get through to the end of that mind-numbingly boring paper you're writing on Chaucer. But the reason why this kind of habit is hard to break is that a nice surge of energy at 11 p.m. is an enjoyable feeling. And enjoyable feelings usually result in your brain releasing dopamine. This is partly why people often crave things that aren't even enjoyable for them anymore. The brain is jonesing for dopamine. But don't worry, my habitual compadres. Human beings are pretty amazing at changing and adapting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to obliterate that bad habit in 4 easy steps. Pause and print this sheet at watchwellcast.com. Step 1. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Write down the bad habit you're trying to quit. Start simple. Choose just one. Step 2. Learn to avoid your triggers. Take some time to think about the things that really make you crave doing your bad habit. If biting your nails is your vice, your triggers might be, that last-minute quiz. Oh no, I gotta pay my electric bill, or how much money do I have in my account for rent? List these triggers in section 2 of your worksheet. Next to these triggers, write a list of ways you can avoid them. For example, read your syllabus every week, or make sure that you plan for automatic deductions for your electric bill. Step 3, substitute your bad habits for not-so-bad habits. Basically, you want to teach your brain, by repetition, to learn a new habit. So, if you tend to bite your nails when you're stressed and alone in your living room, stock your refrigerator with carrots and celery so that you can reach for something else to chew on when you're stressed out. Write a substitution next to every trigger on section 3 of your worksheet. Step 4. Gather your army. You do not have to do this alone. Enlist your friends to help you defeat this bad habit. Start by telling them that you're planning on eliminating this bad habit, and you need their help. Just the simple act of letting them in on this battle that you're waging is a step in the right direction. Remember, your friends can be bodyguards. They'll stand between you and your brain. Tell them to police you. If they see you reaching for those nails to bite, give them the permission to remind you of your mission. Or even slap your hand. Whatever you want. All right, guys, let's recap. Today, you learned 4 steps for beating your bad habit. You decided which habit you wanted to kick. You figured out your triggers for this bad habit, and you decided on ways to avoid and replace these triggers with healthier alternatives. If all else fails, you learn to enlist your friends in the fight.
Tweet us at WatchWellcast, email us at watchwellcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. Good to see you today. It is Tuesday, August 5. How about it? Back from Asheville. Good to be back. It was great to be there. Good to be back with all of you here on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV, our worldwide video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. Thank you for joining us. Busy days in Washington, D.C. This is the Africa Summit. Called by President Obama to forge some really stronger and more productive trade ties with African nations. The leaders of 40-plus African nations are here in Washington, D.C., each of them zipping around town with his own 8-plus car motorcade, complete with police motorcycle escorts. It's a good thing that Congress is out of town and so many federal employees have taken the week off. Otherwise, it would be impossible to travel anywhere in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, the nation mourns the death of James Brady, press secretary to Ronald Reagan, who, of course, was severely wounded in that assassination attempt on President Reagan. And then Jim Brady and his wife, Sarah, became the champions of sensible gun control in this country, resulting in passage of the Brady Act and the first assault weapons ban, which sadly expired in 2004 and has never been renewed. President Obama, meanwhile, celebrating his birthday yesterday, is now studying a possible executive order on immigration. Congress, of course, gave him no choice because they left town without doing anything about immigration, and the president has promised to do what he can by executive order. We'll take a look at all of that and wait for your calls, too, at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday morning. Look forward to hearing from you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The media fanning the flames about an Ebola virus crisis in the United States. What's the truth? They find out right here. Good morning, everybody. What do you say? Tuesday, August 5. So good to see you today. Back from Asheville, North Carolina, the Paris of the South. If you haven't been there, you gotta plan a visit to Asheville, North Carolina. Great town, great people, great big event yesterday, and we will tell you all about it. So good to see you. Thank you to Peter Ogburn for flying the 747 yesterday.
Welcome back,
in my
sir.
absence. Thank you.
Nice to have you back.
I think I'm back. I'm halfway back at any rate.
Late night flight, huh?
Late night flight. Yep. Indeed. Yeah. In at midnight, up at 4. Iron Man.
That's it, man. That's it.
The thing about it ain't an easy place to get to. That's the only thing, or to get back from. But good to be with you. What a fantastic, incredibly powerful, moving big rally yesterday in Asheville for the Moral Monday movement with the Reverend William Barber. Yeah, and again, we'll tell you all about it. Plus, everything else is going on here in Washington, D.C., around the country and around the globe this fine Tuesday. And look forward to hearing from you. We're coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station on the TuneIn app. Tune in. Download it. It's free. Or you can listen also on iHeartRadio, of course, to any one of our great affiliates if you don't have a progressive station near you. And you can watch the show as well on Free Speech TV, the DirecTV and the Dish Network. And worldwide, you can take a look on our video stream at youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. The whole gang is here this morning. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy. Hello, guys.
Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Nice to join you.
Nice to have you back.
On the phone yesterday.
Yeah, that was fun.
Phoning it in. Not bad.
And you're quite the phone guest.
We get that little... we were talking with Arthur Delaney. Well, he'll be in a half hour about this... We're championing now the 4-day work week.
That's right.
Maybe one way to start is to just do that 5th day on the phone.
That's not a bad idea, Bill.
Yeah.
This seemed to work out pretty well for you yesterday.
Of course, there has to be somebody here to take the phone call.
That's right. That's right.
Elise Cruz has the phones covered. Don't forget, you can join us anytime by giving us a call on any topic at any time at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number, 866-55-77-377. Cyprian Bolding, our thanks to him for keeping us looking good on the video cam on TawkrTV and on Free Speech TV. So we've been talking a lot about LeBron James.
That's right,
back to Cleveland. As Senator Sherrod Brown was telling us last week, since he and his wife moved back to Cleveland, they've had LeBron James move back. The Republican National Committee has come to Cleveland, and there was the
Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, going to the Cleveland Browns.
Going to Cleveland Browns. So it's all good for Ohio. And now Seth Meyers told us last night there's a new. They're so excited to get LeBron James. They're thinking about doing something very, very special statewide.
An Ohio lawmaker wants the state to introduce a new LeBron James license plate.
How about that?
LeBron James license plates. It'll be the first license plate honoring an NBA player and made by NFL players.
Nice.
Very nice. Yes, indeed. So lots coming up today. Arthur Delaney will be joining us as he always does on a Tuesday. Sad news for the Igorians today. Igor will not be joining us. What did Igor do to deserve a vacation? I'm not sure.
Right?
Yeah.
He didn't clear it with us first.
No. What's going on here? But Olivier Knox, good friend, will be here as a friend of Bill in our final hour together. Olivier Knox covering the White House for Yahoo News. And then Patrick Oakford from the Center for American Progress will be along as well. And what about this Ebola virus scare? But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news, Bill. Good news in Toledo, Ohio.
Oh,
remember
yes.
We talked yesterday about how their drinking water supply had been contaminated and nearly 500,000 people were left without drinking water.
Can you believe that?
Yeah. The National Guard had to come in, bring them some water. Yesterday, the ban was lifted. This was all due to an algae bloom in Lake Erie, which contaminated the water. So yesterday, the mayor of Toledo, Michael Collins, showed up in front of TV cameras with a glass of Toledo tap water, he said, and took a big swig of it for the cameras, said it's safe to drink again. Residents are still a little concerned, but again, they say all clear.
He didn't take a glass of water from Lake Erie and drink it.
He didn't go that far.
No, right. Because the fish pee in that water.
That's right.
That's what I hear. I'm not sure.
Right. Yesterday we talked about Lollapalooza, the big concert that took place in Chicago. Well, on social media, a couple of pictures have leaked out that one of the people that attended was Malia Obama.
You know, she's talk about the bear loose.
The cub.
Baby bear.
The baby bear is definitely loose, man. She's got a car now. Did she drive to Chicago?
I doubt she drove to Chicago. I doubt she took a road trip to Chicago. But she was there among fans. A couple people took some selfies with Malia Obama in the background while the music was playing. So she was there and mixing it up with the crowd. I'm sure Secret Service was close by.
That's cool. Yeah, good for her.
I wonder if she met Joey. Joey was there.
Yeah, our friend Joey from Chicago. He was at Lollapalooza.
He was?
He was.
Yeah.
What the hell? Joey never turns out when I show up in Chicago.
No.
So every time I go, I always look for Joey. He's never there.
Bring Malia with you next time. That's the thing.
I have to get a rock band.
Apparently. Apparently. And finally, Leafly is an app and a website that we've talked about before. Leafly, it's a site that takes a look at marijuana use and also marijuana strains. It ranks them and describes them. It's a little category into different categories that a lot of stoners use. Well, they made history. They took out a full-page ad in the New York Times over the weekend. It's never been done before. And the big headline is, "Just Say No." KNOW, all about getting yourself familiar with the marijuana process and what's out there and what's available.
There's another editorial yesterday in the Sunday in the New York Times about on their continuing drive. To get rid of the ban on the federal prohibition on marijuana, and
it's moving that direction.
Absolutely. And that was the first full-page ad. People are saying that with this marijuana now becoming legal, it is going to be a bonanza for advertising companies.
Sure, yeah.
Who lost all this money because they can't do cigarette ads,
right,
or beer ads, or liquor ads.
And it's not just about the pot, right? You've got pipes and vaporizers and grinders and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, lots of opportunity there indeed, yes. All right. So as we talked briefly in a couple of phone conversations yesterday, but Friday was a big day around the White House, leading to our talk about Ebola. But President Obama, our briefing, a regular briefing with Josh Earnest was scheduled at 2 o'clock Friday, which seemed a little late. All of us thought that, but we were assembled there, and just about 5 minutes to 2, we got word that there would be no briefing because the president himself was going to come out for a little informal news conference at 2:35, which he did. Talked about a lot of issues. Talked about he went out of his way to. He talked first about his phone call that morning, Friday morning, with Vladimir Putin, where again he told Vladimir Putin that in no way could we tolerate a continued Russian help for the separatists in Ukraine, and that we were going to continue to put as many sanctions on as we could until he changed his behavior. Apparently not a very friendly phone call. The president went out of his way to thank John Kerry for his efforts to try to get a ceasefire in Gaza, and while repeating his support for Israel, also said Israel had to do more to prevent civilian casualties in the Gaza territory. He talked about a lot of issues. Also expresses his continued confidence in CIA Director John Brennan. And on immigration, the president did point out the irony, which is that Congress leaves town without doing anything about immigration reform, and then they say, well, since we can't get anything done, it's up to the president now to do things. Remember, they had actually sued him a couple of days before, right, for doing it. So we have the president talking about the irony of that.
They voted to sue me for acting on my own. And then when they couldn't pass a bill yesterday, they put out a statement suggesting I should act on my own because they couldn't pass a bill.
Yeah, I mean, come on, these guys, it's such a joke. At any rate, sadly, though, that crisis at the border goes unaddressed until the president does take some executive action. And then the president talked about the Africa Summit, which is now underway here with leaders of 40-some African nations here. First time ever they've all assembled here in the United States to strengthen our ties with many of these emerging African nations and their growing economies. And the president, I thought, was very interesting. He went out of it. Then he added on him, so nobody asked this question about the Ebola virus. And he says, people keep raising this issue. I just want you to know we're well aware of what's going on in those 4 West African nations. And we have taken every precaution to screen at that end anybody from those nations who's getting on a plane for the United States, and to monitor them and screen them at this end as well. So he said, we are on top of this. We know all about it, which I thought was comforting, and he put that out there. But, boy, you never believe that. You'd never know that if you looked at the media today. I mean, I came home from Asheville yesterday, looking this morning. Peter, we were looking at the monitors this morning. All 3 networks, all they were talking about was Ebola virus scare. Panic. Fox News is talking about panic hitting the United States. A New York man, they're testing a New York man for the Ebola virus. And all these, did you realize this? All these kids coming across the border from El Salvador and Guatemala and Honduras, they are bringing the Ebola virus to the United States. That's what you hear out there. It is outrageous.
Freak out.
It is really, it's just unbelievable. And so let's just kind of slow down and see what's going on, all right? There are 2 Americans we know that are infected with the Ebola virus. One of them is already in this country. By the way, did you see the picture of this? They're both doctors. Did you see the picture of this when he got off the plane? I mean, he was wearing the whole hazmat kind of gear, and the people greeting him were, and he's in isolation, I think, in Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta.
The second person, the second infected American woman, Dr. Nancy, I think her name is,
Nancy Whiteball.
Nancy Whiteball arrives tomorrow. Will also go into isolation, I'm sure. And both of them are showing some signs of improvement. They're under care. They're brought here because they can get the best care in the world. That's the extent, actually, of the Ebola virus in this country. But then, so I looked into this guy in New York. This is a man who came sometime in the last few months, was in one of those 4 nations. He walked into the emergency room at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York with an upset stomach. And when they found out that he had been in one of those countries, they thought, just as a precaution, we ought to take a special look at him. Yeah,
sure.
Which they did. The doctor in charge of the hospital has said he gave a news conference yesterday saying, odds are this is not Ebola.
Panic, though.
Panic. Panic is what New York, Fox News is talking about this morning. There's CNN right away this morning about this New York, one man in New York tested for Ebola. Doesn't have it.
And it's unlikely.
And it's unlikely. And panic, they say, has hit the United States. I think maybe panic has struck the media. Now, on top of that, wouldn't you know this? It was bad enough over the weekend that Rick Perry suggested, we're talking about now the what's happening at the border with these 57,000 children who have come across. Rick Perry suggested that many of them have ties to terrorists. Here, do we have that, Rick Perry? This is with Candy Crawley on CNN Sunday morning. Ties to terrorists.
I'm the governor of the state of Texas. My citizens' safety is what's foremost here, and hadn't got anything to do with anything other than those numbers of individuals who are coming across the border. And when you think about the idea that some of them are from countries that have substantial terrorist ties, whether it's Pakistan or Afghanistan or Syria, we are historic record highs with individuals being apprehended from those countries.
Whoa, Rick. Let's remind ourselves here. Let's remind ourselves these are children. These are children. I doubt many of them are, have ties to terrorists. And it's children from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Now, on top of that, as if that's not bad enough, 2 members of Congress now, Phil Gingrey from Georgia, and this other guy from Indiana, Todd Rokita, I never heard of him, from Indiana. Both of them have now suggested that these kids coming across the border are carrying the Ebola virus into the United States. Phil Gingrey says, reports of illegal migrants carrying deadly diseases such as swine flu, dengue fever, Ebola virus, and tuberculosis are particularly concerning. And this guy's a doctor. So suddenly, that's a serious outbreak. 800 people, I think, died already in 4 West African countries. And he's saying these children coming from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras are bringing the Ebola virus into the United States. I mean, I got to tell you, these Republicans and the media, shame on them for trying to whip up this fever, this panic, this scare in the United States about the Ebola virus. It ought to be taken seriously. We are taking it seriously. But let's have some evidence before we panic, don't you think? Let's talk about it here. On this Tuesday, 866-55-PRESS is our toll-free number.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful?
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all of the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you know, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Yeah, if you listen to Fox News, you would think that the Ebola virus is in every one of the 50 states with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people dead in the United States. Yeah, that's what the media is trying to whip up here. Rick is calling from Oxnard, California. What do you say, Rick?
You know what? This is just common. The media does this all the time. They try to get our focus away from what's really going on in the country and what we need to happen. One person, my God, we lose thousands of people every day in car accidents. We don't hear about it.
Or gun violence, right?
Yeah, all of this. I mean, they're doing the same thing to Obama that they did to Clinton. You know, when they tied him up in court for the last 2 years of it. And now they're going to tie our man up in court. It's just ridiculous. And why the media does this? There needs to be, you know, we need to go back to that law that said they had to always have backup and proof for everything they said.
The Fairness Doctrine. Rick, yes, indeed. It should have come back a long time ago. Ronald Reagan's the one who got rid of it. I've given up on that. But don't believe all the scare about Ebola virus. One man, and odds are he doesn't have it. That's it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, it happens to be a Tuesday, August 5. How about it? Back from the big Moral Monday rally in Asheville, North Carolina yesterday. What a great experience to be there. Just thousands and thousands of people there to hear the Reverend William Barber bring his movement to Asheville. They are organized, they are focused, and they are making a big difference not only in North Carolina but all around the country. Back here, and glad to be back, and welcome back to the show on a Tuesday morning. Arthur Delaney, champion of the underdog, and editor of HuffPost Hill for the Huffington Post. Hello, Arthur. What's going on?
It's great to be back on this August radio show.
I like that. It's August every month of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Arthur, we've been talking about the Ebola virus scare. Have you been inoculated against it so far? You don't have your hazmat suit on this morning. Obviously, you are not worried. You are ignoring this crisis that the media is all over this morning.
They don't have
Every one of the networks this morning has been talking about the Ebola virus. Fox News saying panic strikes the United States.
There's no inoculation. This is one of those times where vaccines really don't work. They don't have one. I don't understand why people are so worried about it coming here. Like, there was a lot of questioning bringing these doctors home, even though we're bringing them to the best possible place, and the experts have no concern.
And they arrived in these hazmat suits and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and I looked at the Drudge Report, and they're flipping out.
Headline on the Drudge Report: Fear. New York City hospital tests man for Ebola. Okay, this is one man walked into the emergency room. He had an upset stomach. Within the last few months, he has visited one of these 4 African nations. They immediately put him in isolation, and they're testing him. And then the head of the hospital came out, or the leading doctor in the hospital came out and said, odds are this ain't Ebola, right?
Phew.
And yet, right, and yet 350 million people are panicking because one guy is tested in New York City.
I was wondering
Ridiculous.
why would the Drudge Report be hyperventilating about this?
Because somehow they'll find a way to blame it on President Obama.
And then I thought back to other hysterical news stories. Like, do you remember the Africanized killer bees?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And I thought this is an
killer bees aren't bad enough.
Ebola is like the Africanized flu, and so this is just perfect for the Drudge Report because he likes to make a big panic about anything scary black people are doing, and it's a very race baiting website.
It is scary black people or scary brown people, because now two Republican members of Congress have said that these kids, these children who have come across the border from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador somehow are bringing the Ebola virus from West Africa with them.
It's just free association. Topics in the news, like refrigerator magnets, and you have the news, and all the words from the news are on your refrigerator. So they've just connected Ebola to immigration.
Davis is calling from Radford, Virginia. Hey, Davis, what do you say? Are you there? Hello?
The Ebola already got him.
Oh, it's too late.
No.
We were too late for Davis and Radford.
He was very patient. He held on a long time, but not quite
long enough.
Long enough. See, that's the moral of the story is never hang up, because your moment may come and you've got to be there.
That's how I feel when I'm on hold with Comcast.
Don't mention, please.
Oh, dude.
Don't mention Comcast.
He's still a little sore over Comcast.
We had a hard time with Comcast last week.
I'll bet you did.
Right.
There's no other kind of time you can possibly have with Comcast.
We went out 2 days in a row.
Our internet service
went out.
Yep.
Yeah, and we depend on them to reach out.
That's Comcast for you.
You know what? Before we get into the issues that we want to talk to you about this morning, I've got to mention something that nobody else is talking about. Yesterday marked the 100th anniversary of the beginning of World War I. We forget about World War I. 37 million people were killed in World War I. I mean, it's unbelievable.
We don't do
carnage.
war like we used to.
No. And that they called it the war to end all wars. It was so bad, so horrific. Everybody said we would never do that again. And 20 years later, we were back into it. It was just.
And we've been doing wars continuously ever since, but they've been much, much, much smaller.
Right.
And people think it's bad now, but it's just not even.
No, I mean
close.
No,
to what it was
we talk
like.
about 50,000 Americans killed in Vietnam, which was horrific, right? The death toll. There were a million British citizens killed in World War I. I mean, the numbers when you look at it back then, and the carnage, and that's when they used chemical weapons were used, I think, by both sides certainly, and.
They were using nerve gas, and they were just kind of winging it. How do we inflict this on the enemy? And it would just blow all over.
Yeah.
And that's how you wind up with international rules. No, it doesn't even work well, so people don't use it.
And this wasn't warfare where drones were just sort of hovering, and then they shot these rockets down. These were guys in trenches.
Face to face.
And face to face, right?
Yeah.
And they were in trenches for months, if not years, dug into these trenches where you could actually see the guys on the other side. I mean, the books I've read about World War I, the stories I've heard about, I mean, it's just incredible. And so marking that centenary. All right, on to the issues that you talk about every day. I saw your story here about that you abandon all hope for the long-term.
That sounds like an Arthur Delaney headline.
It does, abandon all hope.
Abandon all hope that Congress will help the long-term jobless. I think most people had long since abandoned hope, but I know from my email and I know from Twitter that some people had not, and those people were closely following everything Congress did, and even members of Congress like Sandy Levin, Democrat of Michigan, Jack Reed of Rhode Island, Dean Heller, Republican in Nevada, kept talking like they were trying, and they were trying, but you needed to have this realistic attitude the whole time that even though they were trying, it was virtually impossible from the get-go. Even though the Senate passed a bill that all along this was hopeless. But now it's really and truly, we can say definitively, it's not happening. They're gone for August. And when they come back, there's going to be an election. They're not going to do this.
Isn't it pathetic? We remember when they passed that bill that said 5 months, but it would expire in May.
Right. They passed the bill in April.
Yeah. And here we right. They passed it in April. And here we are in August. And the House hasn't even
right. And all along,
taken this
it was
up.
John Boehner was happy to get beat up for it. I think he really didn't mind. Because he's an establishment Republican, and if he's being attacked from the left on something like unemployment insurance, well, if anything, that burnishes his credibility with the right flank, which is obviously a big concern of his, because he's got the whole caucus full of wingers who don't trust him.
Well, on HuffPost Hill last night, the story that caught my attention is that Republicans also don't mind that they have, in effect, abandoned the Latino community in walking away from any form of immigration reform. Not only that, but they also passed the bill, which is going nowhere, we know, to reverse President Obama's executive order on the Dreamers. So the one thing that President Obama was able to do, they want to undo, and plus they did nothing to resolve the crisis. But as you point out, the Republicans don't, they really, so what? They've alienated the entire Latino vote? They don't care. House Republicans.
Well, yeah, it's if you go back a few news cycles to after the election, for like several months, there was this autopsy that the Republican National Committee did, for instance, which just reflected congressional wisdom, conventional wisdom at the time, which was that Latinos don't vote for you, and immigration is one reason. They suspect that you're hostile to immigration reform that would benefit the 11 million people who are already here.
If we want to do better, we've got to take some leadership on immigration reform. That's what that report said.
Right, and that report was so sensible that the U.S. Senate passed a bipartisan immigration bill, and we have
over a year ago.
It feels like a different century. So different is the climate now. So hostile are Republicans in the House now to doing anything nice for immigrants. It will be really interesting to see if the demographic death spiral really bears out, because if the worst case scenario is possible, in which a growing population of Latino voters is just totally alienated by the Republican Party, that really would mean they would not have long-term dominance in Congress, even though, the way it looks right now, they'll probably hold the House of Representatives for another 10 years or something like that.
Well, they certainly would not have a chance of winning the White House. They might be able to hold on to these Tea Party seats, that have been manufactured by the reapportionment by
they
these
have
Republican
given over
legislatures.
Their immigration policy position to the guy, Steve King, who talks about immigrants from Central America like they're subhuman freaks, who not only said that they have cantaloupe calves from hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert, but was challenged on that and insisted it was true, and continues to insist that it's true to this day.
What I love is a guy that you quote here. I was just checking. Representative Mo Brooks, Republican from Alabama, right, who says, right, that the Democratic efforts to pass immigration reform and President Obama's efforts to pass immigration reform are part of the Democratic Party's war on whites.
War on whites.
Yeah.
The war on whites.
It's funny to co-opt the other side's language when the Democrats said Republicans have a war on women. But for this construction to work, I think you need a disadvantaged group in the second half, right? War on whites. I don't think anyone's gonna buy that, except for the people who are, already totally devoted to the Republican Party, and you don't need to additional
I mean, this is such
self-pitying white voters.
This is such an Alice in Wonderland scenario. 50,000 children come across the border, and under our law signed by President Bush, like, we have to take care of them. That's who we are, right? And the Republicans say, no, we can't help those children because that's part of a war on whites.
They're children from country that
I just can't relate to that.
The country with the highest murder rate in the world is what some of those kids are running from. And you could treat them like refugees, but instead you're accusing them of harboring the Ebola virus.
And our efforts to help them, accusing us of having a war on whites. You can't make this stuff up. Arthur.
Or you could, but it wouldn't be as good.
No, exactly. Arthur Delaney here from Huffington Post. Join the conversation. Don't be like, was it Davis from Radford,
Can't
Virginia.
Davis call back?
We won't let him call back. No, he had his chance. You only get one chance. 866-55-PRESS is the toll-free number. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Racing dot. I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
Nine minutes now before the top of the hour. Whoa, Arthur, running out of time.
Whoa!
I know. Yeah. Just time to ask you about another story I saw yours this week. We talked last week about Paul Ryan finally came out with his plan, and your story is how much he wants the government to actually help poor people.
Well, a little HuffPost behind the scenes for you. I was pre-writing a portion of this story before I would have a chance to ask Paul Ryan questions last week at the Christian Science Monitor breakfast. And my headline was, Paul Ryan wants the government to run poor people's lives, because his plan called for everyone who wants welfare of any kind to meet with somebody from the government and work with that person to create a life plan. And this had been panned. Liberals called it paternalistic. Michelle Malkin ridiculed it as giving government life coaches for the poor. And so I asked Paul Ryan, aren't these life coaches going to be really expensive, and won't the need to pay for them inevitably result in cutting money you'd actually give people in the form of benefits? And he said, well, no. Charities would do this, I think, sort of magically. He doesn't explain how that would work and not cost money. But then he said, you know what, I'm not mandating this. It's just an idea I like. And sure enough, his plan is ambiguous enough that it was fair to say that he didn't intend.
Demand it. Yeah.
So there you have it. Just how much does Paul Ryan want the government to plan poor people's lives is the headline I wound up with, and I think it's not totally clear, but somewhat he does.
But the idea that somebody that these coaches, I love that, right? I think it is paternalistic, right? They're going to meet with you, and somebody from the government's going to meet with you and tell you, here's what you need to do so that you're no longer poor. We're not going to raise the minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
Or we're not going to help you with any social safety net programs, but here's what you need to be
conservative and libertarian opposition to the idea of big government and a nanny state. It stops. They draw a line when you talk about giving assistance to people, and then all bets are off. You can be as paternalistic at that point as you want, and I think only hardcore libertarians would really be annoyed, because this is just how conservatives feel about welfare. You make people pee in a cup, prove they're not on drugs, give them life coaches. You can do whatever you want if it's giving taxpayer money to somebody who, some conservatives would say screwed up on his own and shouldn't necessarily be guaranteed help.
All right, middle-class Americans, poor Americans, those of you who feel you don't have a voice, you got one. Here he is, Arthur Delaney, with us every Tuesday morning from Huffington Post, HuffingtonPost.com. Thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, Bill.
Always good to see you. Okay, I'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans, because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
and more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Glenn Thrush from Politico joins us at the top of the next hour. Meanwhile, new poll is out showing that only 3% of registered voters think that Congress is productive. Well, I got to tell you, they got that right. 3%. What's wrong with that 3%? It ought to be 0. I think Congress being productive.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, good morning, friends and neighbors. Good to see you today. It is Tuesday, August 5. How about it? Back from Asheville. Good to be back. It was great to be there. Good to be back with all of you here on Free Speech TV and on TawkrTV, our worldwide video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV. Thank you for joining us. Busy days in Washington, D.C. This is the Africa Summit. called by President Obama to forge some really stronger and more productive trade ties with African nations. The leaders of 40-plus African nations are here in Washington, D.C., each of them zipping around town with his own 8-plus car motorcade, complete with police motorcycle escorts. It's a good thing that Congress is out of town and so many federal employees have taken the week off. Otherwise, it would be impossible to travel anywhere in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, the nation mourns the death of James Brady, press secretary to Ronald Reagan, who, of course, was severely wounded in that assassination attempt on President Reagan. And then Jim Brady and his wife Sarah became the champions of sensible gun control in this country, resulting in passage of the Brady Act and the first assault weapons ban, which sadly expired in 2004 and has never been renewed. President Obama, meanwhile, celebrating his birthday yesterday, is now studying a possible executive order on immigration. Congress, of course, gave him no choice because they left town without doing anything about immigration, and the president has promised to do what he can by executive order. We'll take a look at all of that and wait for your calls, too, at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday morning. Look forward to hearing from you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate your children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, she's putting them in the same basket again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
The African Summit underway here in Washington, D.C. Whatever you do, don't plan to drive around downtown Washington, D.C. You can't get anywhere because of all the motorcades. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Great to see you on this Tuesday, August 5. We're coming to you live from Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. in our studio. Right down the street from the United States Capitol building, booming out to you all across this great land of ours, coast to coast, on the radio and on TV, on your local progressive talk radio station, and on Free Speech TV, as well as worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Great to be back with you from Asheville and down there for the Mountain Moral Monday rally yesterday with the Reverend William Barber. It was a great, great event, very powerful and very moving and inspiring event. And we'll tell you more about it a little bit later in the hour. And thanks to Peter Ogburn for filling in while I was gone.
Happy to help, sir.
I did help out a little bit yesterday, calling in from Asheville.
That's right.
On the scene.
I appreciate that. It was nice to have you.
Helping you.
And as I mentioned on the air, there's really nothing like filling in for your boss and then interviewing your boss doing his job. That's a really interesting feeling. I can't recommend it highly enough.
All right. Peter Ogburn here with Elisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Alicia Cruz has the phones covered. You want to give us a call? We welcome your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Balding has us looking good on that video cam. Our videographer, indeed. And there is good news. Good news for the people of Toledo. The mayor himself, D. Michael Collins. How long was it that they weren't able to drink any water out there? They were
several days.
Yeah.
It was like 3 or 4 days.
Because their water supply, most of it comes from Lake Erie, and they had this problem. And so no drinking water in Toledo. But as of yesterday, here's the mayor.
Our water is safe.
There it is. Our water is safe, he said. And then he took a glass full of Toledo tap water and guzzled it down.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah?
False flag. I don't believe that was a real glass of water. I think he poured some Deer Park into a glass and said, "This is Toledo tap water." Just to be safe.
A little Perrier, maybe.
Yeah.
I thought it had some bubbles in it.
Exactly.
A little lime
bacteria.
twist.
Those are the bubbles.
Hey, top of this hour, our good friend Glenn Thrush from Politico will be joining us in a little bit. And in the next hour, Olivier Knox covers the White House for Yahoo News. Will be here in as a friend of Bill. We'll get right to the news of the day with Glenn Thrush. But first, Peter with the big stories of the day.
Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. Yes, indeed. Bacon is at an all-time high when it comes to how much it costs. The current cost of bacon is $6.11 per pound. That is up from last year, June of 2013. It's a 14% increase, and it's a 41% increase than June of 2012. Why is bacon so expensive?
I was just going to ask you that question.
I'm glad you asked, Bill, because I have the answer for you. Well, there are 3 reasons, actually. Number 1, there's a very bad pig virus going around that's killing off thousands of pigs. Not only that, the demand for bacon continues to rise, and pork belly continues to rise. And on top of that, the drought across much of the United States has forced the feed prices, the crops that you feed these pigs, to hit astronomical levels. So you combine all those, now you have bacon costing more than it ever has.
And so many more people are buying, like I do, ordering the little bacon cheeseburger at Five Guys.
That's right.
Along with their bacon milkshake.
Oh, that's right.
I'm gonna skip that bacon milkshake.
Yeah.
I'll get a little bacon cheese, but I'm not gonna get a bacon milkshake. That just ain't happening. Raymond Burse was named the interim president of Kentucky State University. It's a job that came with a salary of $90,000, but he's already a very wealthy man, so he asked the university, how many people working here on staff make less than $10.25 per hour? They did the math. They found out that he donated all of his $90,000 to help pay those people making less than $10.25 an hour that work on campus to boost them up to $10.25.
I think that all members of Congress should follow his example. Right. Until all Americans make $10.25, right? They should not be making $175,000 a year.
There you go. And yesterday was the president's birthday. They sent out a little email from the White House saying you can sign this card to wish the president happy birthday.
And send money.
And also, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, send a little money. But here's the thing that's causing some controversy. They put a picture of the president and with a quote from him that said, "Some people prefer cake. I like pie." So now you have this. He's like, the president is now dissing cake.
Oh, no.
In favor of pie.
How dare he?
Who's ever heard of birthday pie? I'm bipartisan that way. I have no problem eating either. But the president apparently, with his disparaging comments against cake, may set off a war.
Oh, man, I'm going to tell you, the briefing today, that's going to be probably the number one issue. Here we go.
You know what, though? You know what? If I have to choose, I go pie over cake.
Really?
That's right. Proudly.
Taking a stand.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
You know what? I would, too.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah. No.
It starts
Thinking
here.
about it. See, Obama's out in front on this.
That's
I got to tell you. All right,
Obama can lead.
Listen, nobody knows the White House better than Glenn Thrush, senior staff writer for Politico. All right, Glenn, you've got to take a stand here. Cake or pie?
Well, if I were Obama, I would go with a cake because a pie is less easy to be thrown in your face.
But, you know, this is just one of the many issues lately on which the president has been showing leadership here, Glenn.
That is true, Bill. I would say first term pie, second term cake.
Hey, now,
by the way, well, let me just say, I was listening to Ogburn talk. Dude, you sound exactly like Seth Rogen today.
Do you know how many times I hear that? I get that so
no, I mean, really, and I was wondering, how you achieve that effect. Is there perhaps a pharmaceutical component?
We have a lot in common, Glenn.
All right, man.
Glenn, I want to ask you, we saw a very feisty and maybe funny side and serious side of President Obama Friday at that hastily called news conference there, if you can call it that, in the briefing room.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think it's really interesting is just how many of these events that Obama stages on Friday afternoons. I'd love somebody to kind of like maybe Mark Knoller to go.
Mark Knoller probably has the count.
Go through those. He wouldn't even have to look it up. That Knoller or somebody to just kind of tell us how many of these things are on Friday afternoons or Tuesdays at 3:45.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's an old habit that he has. I mean, he doesn't have these things in the middle. He doesn't have. I can't think of the last time he had a prime time press conference. It's been years, right?
Oh, absolutely, and it's also been months and months since he's had a full-scale, East Room announced a day ahead of time news conference as well.
Right. He doesn't want reporters to prepare. I mean, a couple of my colleagues at Politico, Edward Isaac DeVere and Carrie Budoff Brown, because everybody has to have 3 names at Politico, had a good piece, I think, that sort of talks about how he is making himself more available, how he's taking more questions after announcements. But that said, he really scales these things down. He wants these things to be more informal.
Right.
I think it's, I've always thought that was curious, but yes, he seems to be wanting to engage people more, and I think that's, again, characteristic of a second term.
Were you surprised that he was so stoutly defensive of and very eager to defend John Brennan? He had walked away, and people shouted John Brennan, and he came back, which it doesn't always do, to the podium, specifically to stand up and defend John Brennan.
Oh, no, he loves John Brennan, and he loves Lisa Monaco. These are the two sort of anti-terror folks who are in the White House. I mean, personal loyalty, as those of us, as you know, Bill, is paramount to this guy. And I'll go back to the aftermath of the Osama bin Laden raid, when John Brennan came into the briefing room and gave us an account of that raid that was essentially fictional.
Yep, I was there. You were there. Yeah,
crazy town. I mean, there was 4 or 5 points of fact that had to be later amended and corrected. He got crossways with the Pentagon. Bob Gates, I think, gave him a pretty rough handling in his autobiography. And there were calls at that point in time for some sort of censure of him. But Obama appointed him to CIA, and he was he got through.
Yeah, and the idea that they were, which of course he admitted that they were spying on the staff of the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Listen, I think, and it sounds to me like you agree with me. I think of the scandals, mini scandals, non-scandals that we've covered, this is, to me, unless the IRS thing turns out to be factual, and maybe a tie or close second place with the wiretapping of reporters, I think that this is a profound scandal. I mean, you cannot have the executive branch of the government spying on the legislative branch. I am shocked, by the way, not really shocked, but I'm just shocked that it hasn't gotten more attention. I mean, this is a really significant constitutional violation.
No, it is, and it happened. A lot of the time, Brennan may not have ordered it. I don't believe he ordered it, right? But it happened on his watch, and this is a town where things happen on your watch. You're usually held responsible for it, but not John Brennan, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, it doesn't matter that he didn't order it. I think it's just, this is one of those issues. If you're running an operation where that sort of violation is permissible, I think it brings into question. And again, it's really interesting also with the, and again, this is my perspective on this, but I think, with the wiretapping of reporters, with Holder's actions in that regard, him greenlighting that stuff, it's very interesting to me that the Republicans will rake the Democrats over the coals on Benghazi, on the IRS scandal, yet there seems to be sort of this weird muting in a bipartisan way of both of those issues, which I think are much more historically important.
Right. Yeah, the other thing, of course, that the president talked about and had some fun pointing out the irony of the fact that Republicans in the House weren't able to do anything on immigration, so they called on him to do something by executive order. Just a clip to remind us how the president expressed it on Friday.
They voted to sue me for acting on my own, and then when they couldn't pass a bill yesterday, they put out a statement suggesting I should act on my own because they couldn't pass a bill.
So, Glenn, it's pretty clear that sometime soon we're going to see the president with some new executive order on immigration, right?
Yeah, this is what we call the "Daddy, please" strategy of Congress, right? Like,
yeah.
Daddy, please do this so that we don't have to do this, or Daddy, please do this so that we can send out fundraising emails and start another impeachment thing. I really think that there is and we really saw this during all of the budget negotiations, where you sort of had this dynamic in the Republican caucus, where you would have the majority sort of try to set up a deal. The majority of Republicans, set up a deal. The Tea Party guys would hijack it, and then they would sort of hope that the White House would come on in and Democrats would come on in and save them, right? The dynamic here is obviously different. I think there is I think the way Obama and Obama's aides are completely correct on this, and you know this coming out of California. They are really, in a long-term sense, the Republicans challenging their own future here with the Latino voters. So I think there's some short-term, if the president comes out with an executive order on immigration reform, I think it very much depends on how sweeping it is.
Mm-hmm.
If it's fairly limited and targeted, and he has tended to be extremely cautious on these things in the past, he won't be too crossways. If it's more sweeping and he takes a more bold action on this, then there really could be sort of a constitutional controversy. In either way, you're just going to start seeing the Republicans continue, particularly if it's before the midterms, and I anticipate it would be. Just be another chance to play to the base for them.
Yeah, I mean, the timing on it is interesting. I think it was Dan Pfeiffer, somebody said the other day they expect something before the end of summer, right? But I think we're definitely talking about before the midterms.
Yeah, and I think that the Democrats, obviously, you're seeing in the generic ballot, the Democrats again. It was a very characteristic midterm election with probably a little less energy than normal. You're just kind of seeing Democrats are generically underwater, and at this point in time, they need any issue they possibly can to kind of get the turnout modeling to be more characteristic of a presidential. I don't think they're going to be that successful, but they do have there's some rocket fuel this time. I think the Supreme Court decision on Hobby Lobby really helps them in terms of women voters, and I think an executive order could create a firefight and get some more Hispanic voters to the polls this time.
All right. And we know the real reason the president came out on Friday was because he wanted us all to wish him happy birthday. So, and there it is. You got into
icing on the pie.
That's right. Right. That's okay. Right. Hey, Glenn, good to start the week with you this week. Well, it's the first day of the week for me at any rate.
You would consider Tuesday to be the start of the week.
We've got the 4-day work week around here, haven't you heard? So welcome on board. We'll look for you back at the ranch a little bit later today. Thanks so much, Glenn.
Take care.
Always good to talk to you, Glenn Thrush. Great job, senior staff reporter for Politico at Politico.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university? And,
people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour. I want to bring you up to date on the Mountain Moral Monday rally in Asheville, North Carolina yesterday at the half hour. But now just to take a little time out here to pay tribute to a great American, James Brady, former press secretary for President Ronald Reagan, who passed yesterday at the age of 73. James Brady, known, of course, mainly for his heroic leadership on the gun control issue after he was so severely wounded in the assassination attempt on President Ronald Reagan in 1981, just 84 days into the Reagan presidency, where a president and Brady and others leaving the Hilton Hotel up on Connecticut Avenue. John Hinckley opened fire, hit the president, of course, but the one most severely wounded was James Brady, who has been in a wheelchair ever since, but he and his wife, Sarah Brady, then went on to become the champions of sensible gun control measures, resulting, of course, in passage of the Brady Act, signed by President Clinton, and later the assault weapons ban, also signed by President Clinton. Here is Press Secretary Josh Earnest speaking at the White House yesterday.
Even after he was wounded in that attack on the president, was somebody who showed his patriotism and commitment to the country by being very outspoken on an issue that was important to him and that he felt very strongly about.
And Gail Hoffman, speaking for the Brady family, talking about many causes in which James Brady took a lead.
Whether it was working, to prevent others from becoming victims of gun violence, or mentoring Sigma Chi brothers, or working to improve the lives of Americans with disabilities, Jim used his many talents and his can-do attitude to make a real difference in the lives of others.
And I know that all press secretaries look to James Brady as a role model because of the way he handled the press, had a great reputation at the White House for being very open, very accessible, and appropriately, the briefing room where we meet every day with the press secretary of the White House is called the Brady Briefing Room. James Brady, may he rest in peace. We'll be back
This
on Monday.
is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
Here we go at 33 minutes after the hour on a Tuesday, August 5. The Bill Press Show live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, home of the African Summit this week. And we are brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women of the AFGE under President J. David Cox, proud to work for America every day. For more information on their good work, go to their website at afge.org. I thought of President J. David Cox yesterday when I was in Asheville, because he participated in one of the great Moral Monday protests, civil disobedience exercises down in Raleigh, North Carolina, about a month ago, and he ended up being arrested, as he expected, along with hundreds of others. I forget, there's been something like 800, maybe between 800 and 900 people who have been arrested in their civil disobedience activities as part of the Moral Monday movement.
It's dedication.
And President J. David Cox ended up spending 7.5 hours in jail, which was more than he expected. But he was glad to do it. It's just that he didn't expect to be there quite that long. Right. Yesterday had nothing to do with anybody getting arrested. It was I just want to tell you, it was just a great scene. I'm so glad that I was able to be part of it. And first, to meet and to see so many great friends from the Asheville area, because we've been down there several times, Peter, with our good friends at 880 The Revolution, the great progressive talk station there in Asheville. And to see so many old friends and meet so many new friends. I told you my goal was to shake hands with every one of the 10,000 people there yesterday.
Yeah.
I made about maybe 8,000.
Okay, that's pretty good.
But yeah,
that's pretty good.
But it was great. And if you saw the photo I tweeted out yesterday, we were right up front, right alongside the speaker's platform, and we were right to the right of it, right in front of the crowd, alongside, just basically on the same stage with the speakers. Could not have been a better spot. And it was a huge crowd. I never did hear the body count, but it went all this packed place square in downtown Asheville, and the crowd filled the entire square, and they were there. Everybody was in such a good mood. The energy was just intense, and the causes people came out for, and they were all, the thing about this Moral Mondays, it brings it all together. I mean, teachers were there talking about the importance of education, the cuts to the public schools that we've seen from the North Carolina legislature. Environmentalists were there. A lot of signs about fracking. Labor leaders were there. Labor unions were there, talking about the minimum wage. Members of the LGBT community were there, talking about same-sex marriage. And what impressed me so much was there were so many signs of just the opposite of any Tea Party rally that I ever went to, where you see these ugly signs attacking, mean, ugly stuff, right? The signs yesterday were like, one sign, the most, maybe I saw more of these than anything else, win with love. Hello.
Wow.
Right. Standing together in love. I mean, it was so upbeat, so positive. And of course, so this movement, first of all, it started last April 2013. And since then, and in case you don't know about it, every Monday, because of this extremist Republican governor that they've got, McCrory, this extremist head of the legislature, head of the House, Tom Tillis, and this extremist state legislature, that in response to that, particularly what they were trying to do, that's the other big issue, was voting rights. What that legislature has tried to do to limit voting rights for the people of North Carolina, make it tougher for seniors and for young people and for people of color, of course, to vote. They started these rallies headed by Reverend William Barber, who's head of the NAACP in North Carolina, and they have just grown and grown and grown and grown. And now they're in many other states. This movement is spreading, that they have a Moral Monday or a Truthful Tuesday. They call it those different things. And at one point last year, they had in Raleigh 80,000 people show up at one of their rallies. 80,000 people, which is more people than marched in Selma, Alabama.
Well,
that is huge.
It says a lot about the movement and how important it is in the state of North Carolina. But you and I talked about this yesterday. Black churches in the South, they know how to organize.
Yeah.
And this is not so much a protest. As you mentioned, you see a lot of positive messages and a lot of positive. It's a community event. It's a community building exercise, and in the South more than other areas, I would argue, that's a really important thing to people.
Yeah, and so they had a whole range of speakers who were all very, very good. And by the way, they went through that program, 3 minutes. Jeff Messer and I were there ready to do a little color commentary in between speeches. We didn't really have a chance to talk that much because they moved that program along. But there were speakers on the environment, there were speakers on education and teachers, speakers on the minimum wage, speakers on voter rights, and it all led up to the man himself, the Reverend William Barber. He's been a guest on our show, and he remembered that. I had a chance to interview him after his speech, and he remembered that and was happy to come on the show again. But I just was looking forward to hearing from him, and boy, he does not disappoint. He is a phenomenal public speaker and can rouse a crowd like nobody I've ever seen. And again, with a very positive message and a very focused message. And he did not hesitate to take on the Republican leadership. Not that it was not a partisan speech, but just on the issues and on the values that this movement represents, how this Republican leadership is just wrong when it comes to publication, wrong when it comes to voting rights, wrong when it comes to LGBT rights, wrong across the board. Here's just a little sample of Reverend William Barber.
McCrory, understand, we don't want you to go down on the wrong side of history. Tillis, we don't want you to go down on the wrong side of history. Berger, we don't want you to go down. Moffitt, Abrapadaca, we don't want you, but we must tell you the truth. You're wrong.
You're wrong. McCrory, of course, the governor, Tillis, the head of legislature, Moffitt, the congressman from down there. He just called them out on issue after issue after issue after issue. They are wrong. And he talked about the fact that the movement has had an impact, and if you want to know what an impact it has, look at the difference in the public opinion polls for each of those Republican leaders in North Carolina.
When we started, the governor was at 50% in the poll. Now he's under 30% and falling. When we started, the legislature was at 40% in the poll. Now they're at 18% and falling. We are not losing. We are winning. We are shifting the center of political gravity.
We are not losing. We are winning. You could hear the crowd. They were just going wild, man. Yeah. And the other thing, he really was, again, very, very focused. The whole rally was focused. And the focus was on these midterm elections and how important they are and how important it is to register to vote and to get people out to vote. There's this one message that came across. It's, this is a time, this is the time to take a stand and not to do what too many Democrats did or progressives did in 2010, which was stay home from the polls. And what the result? John Boehner and the Tea Party is what we got because of that. So his focus right again was on 2014 and why this election is so important. And they had volunteers from every county in that area right there to go out and get the people from that county to sign up on the spot if they weren't already registered to vote. And then he had everybody raise their hands who would go out and get and volunteer to get 10 people, register 10 new people and get them so they could vote in this year's election.
You know what?
I mean, it was
they'll do it too.
Oh, they'll do it. Oh, yeah.
They'll do it.
They've proven that they can do it. Here again, Reverend Barber.
2014 must be an election on, not an election off. We must blow the mind of MSNBC and CNN. When November comes, we must make them see we ain't never seen nothing like this before.
I gotta tell you,
that's powerful stuff, man.
It was great. Oh yeah,
he's on fire.
Just seeing this man in action. I gotta tell you, we need more leaders like. I would like to. I told Jeff Messer yesterday. I would like to take him to every state capital and just keep. And told him that yesterday too. Just keep him on the road. And we, so many of us, never had the honor of being close to Dr. Martin Luther King or to see him or to hear him in person. But Reverend William Barber.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
powerful. He's
the most powerful I've ever heard in my lifetime, and a lot of people compare him to the leadership of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Moral Monday is called, and if you haven't seen it yet in your state, you will invite the Reverend William Barber in. I hope you had a chance to follow some of it yesterday on the news. 866-55-PRESS. So exciting to be there for me. And again, thanks to all of our good friends, Brian Hall and the whole gang at 880 The Revolution, and to Jeff Messer for allowing me to be part of it yesterday. And congratulations to the people of Asheville, Paris of the South, that turned out in such great numbers. The New South, the Reverend said yesterday, it's time for the New South to rise again.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
Yeah, I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
About
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Okay, 12 minutes before the top of the hour with Olivier Knox from Yahoo News in as a friend of Bill. In the next hour, oh, this is terrible. Oh, so bad. It's so tragic. Have you heard? At least 1,600 people have died so far in the United States from the Ebola virus.
Freak out!
Oh yeah, it's just it's terrible. They are dropping.
Actually, I have a.
They're dropping like flies. I've been watching Fox News, so I know it's true because they're talking about panic. Panic has struck the United States.
Bill, I hate to interrupt. I hate to interrupt.
No,
there's actually. Yeah, there's actually.
You mean I can't believe what I saw on Fox News?
Yeah, no. I hate to interrupt, but yeah, no one's died yet from Ebola here in America.
No, it has to because Fox News is. Fox News is talking about Ebola virus nonstop.
I know they were talking about panic,
wall to wall.
Yeah. No, there's nobody that's died yet from Ebola. There's two people here that came here with Ebola to be treated, and there's a man in New York who is being tested for it, but they said that he probably doesn't have it, most likely doesn't have it. But yeah, there's no.
So why is Fox News telling us that there's an Ebola virus epidemic? In this country?
That's a good question.
Why would they do that?
That's a good question.
Why is the Drudge Report talking about the panic that struck the United States over the Ebola virus? Well, you know, the truth of it is, look, the Ebola virus is very serious. This is the most serious outbreak that we've had, I believe, maybe ever. Some 800 people have died in West Africa, 4 West African nations. That is true. There are, as Peter pointed out, 2 Americans who are infected with the disease, both physicians. One of them is back in the United States in isolation in Atlanta. The other is due home tomorrow. She will also be in isolation and treated. And by the way, there are reports that both of them are showing signs of improvement, like they're going to be okay. God willing. And there's one man in New York who walked into the emergency room at Mount Sinai Hospital with a stomach virus or upset stomach. And he was in one of those 4 African nations, don't know which one, sometime in the last few months. So therefore they thought maybe we better take a closer look at this guy and test him for the Ebola virus. Dr. David Reich, one of the physicians at Mount Sinai yesterday, talked about it.
The treatment of Ebola is a symptomatic treatment process, and so we already have this patient in a special facility where all supportive treatment could be given.
And then Dr. Reich went on to say, most likely it is not Ebola. They just want to be extra careful because he was in one of those, happened to be in one of those countries. That is the basis for the panic that we're hearing from Fox News, and it's that plus the absolutely disgusting attempts by a couple of members of Congress, Republican members of Congress, to now charge that the Ebola virus is being brought into this country by those children who are crossing the border from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. They have yet to explain how they are making the link from Liberia on the west coast of Africa to El Salvador to the Rio Grande. Not sure how that all works, but Phil Gingrey, there are 2 of them, Phil Gingrey from Georgia, and Todd Rokita from Indiana, both Republican members of Congress, who are now saying this is the latest, this is the real problem with the border we got to be worried about. Phil Gingrey, by the way, who's a physician himself, so should know better, wrote, reports of illegal migrants carrying deadly diseases such as swine flu, dengue fever, Ebola virus, and tuberculosis are particularly concerning. By the way, Dr. Gingrey's remarks actually earned him a liar, liar, pants on fire rating from the PolitiFact.
Great.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
But that's why. Let me just say, I know this is a slow news time, but for the media, and it's not just. I wish I could say it's just Fox News, but we've seen this morning CNN, MSNBC, and Fox are just basically wall to wall Ebola virus. Don't you believe it? That's all I gotta say. Don't you believe it? We'll be back and tell you what's on President Obama's schedule for today here, and then Olivier Knox at the top of the next hour.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, you know how it goes. 2 hours is just not enough. We need a third hour to cover all the important stuff in the news today, and we'll give you that third hour. Unfortunately, not on Free Speech TV, but yes, on TawkrTV, our worldwide video stream. So jump over there if you want to keep watching at youtube.com/Tawkr, TAWKR-TV. Olivier Knox from Yahoo News covers the White House for Yahoo News. Will be here in studio with us as a friend to Bill the entire hour. And then Patrick Oakford from the Center for American Progress with all of you on TawkrTV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I probably would make a time machine.
I would make medicine for the sick.
I'd probably invent something new.
我会赢到5个总冠军戒指。
If I could have an extra 5 years to live.
You said 5, right?
5 years. That's a long time.
I would try to fix everything I did bad.
I would bring my uncle back because I miss him very much.
I would get more hamsters. I would probably want to go looking for dark matter. I think I'd go looking for aliens. If I could live an extra 5 years...
I was thinking about making like a helicopter, like a wooden helicopter, but I don't have any wood.
I want to go check out the moon sometime.
I'd probably teach my sister not to hate tuna.
I would try and invent a machine that lets you run at light speed. If I had 5 more extra years to live, I would be the boss of all the chipmunks. Eu cantaria na frente de 1 milhão de pessoas. I don't really know. I think I'd do anything. Why are you asking me that?
This is the Bill Press Show.
It's Tuesday, August 5, the Bill Press Show. The big African summit underway here in our nation's capital. We'll catch up on that and all the news of the day with Olivier Knox, White House correspondent for Yahoo News, at the top of here is a friend of Bill for the entire next hour. President Obama gets a daily briefing today. Then he and the vice president have their weekly lunch. Then this afternoon, the president will be attending a business forum for the African leaders at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. He and the vice president meet later in the afternoon with Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel. And then this evening, rather late this evening, 9:30, the president and the first lady host a dinner for African leaders at the White House on the South Lawn. And we have our briefing today with Josh Earnest at 12:30. Back with Olivier Knox, hour number 3.
This
coming up
is the Bill Press Show.
West here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? the role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions, so from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach
likes
your
you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing.
But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
A show.
Rand Paul in Iowa, but don't think he's thinking about 2016. He just happened to stop by Iowa, just passing through. What do you say? Hello, everybody. It is Tuesday, August 5. Can you believe it? Good to see you today, and thank you for joining us here at the Bill Press Show, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. All right, I'll fix my hair.
Very subtle clue. Like I'm trying to give you this
subtle
thing
clues, and my hair's out of shape. I'm sorry, bad hair day. As I said, from our nation's capital, we are right here on Capitol Hill, reaching out to you on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide. And if you are not lucky enough to have one of those great stations near you, you can find us on the TuneIn app. Just download it. It's free. TuneIn. Go to the Progressive Voices channel. And, of course, on iHeartRadio. And worldwide on our video stream at youtube.com/TawkrTV, TAWKRTV. And pleased to welcome, to help us get through the news of the day today, a good friend, covers the White House, Washington generally for Yahoo News, Olivier Knox. Here is a friend of Bill the entire hour. Olivier, good to see you.
Good morning. Sorry, my Ebola is acting up.
Panic! Have you seen, I don't know, all three of the cable networks this morning have been talking about the panic that has hit the United States over the Ebola virus scare.
So my wife's a scientist, which colors a lot of my responses to these things.
Yes, and
it's always fun when she expresses a certain amount of restrained impatience with mass media scientific reporting.
Rightfully so in this case, right?
Right. It's a completely serious story.
Yes.
Obviously much more serious in West Africa. But, you know, the idea that this is, you know, my favorite thing yesterday was the people who were saying, oh, you know, now I'm going to worry about random bodily fluids on the subway in New York City. Really now, huh? We're not ever shaking hands again, ever, in the history of ever. It's just never going to happen.
Well, what I loved were the two Republican members of Congress who said, these kids crossing the border, they're bringing the Ebola virus from El Salvador.
El Salvador, famously located in West Africa.
Yes, right. Well, all their families were probably on vacation in the last...
You know, and the tragic thing is I bet there are all kinds of public health problems with these kids traveling long distances in cramped quarters. I bet there are a lot of terrifying public health ramifications for the conditions in which they've traveled, okay?
Yeah.
I fully believe that. Let's just not blame them. They're not Ebola vectors.
It's Ebola, right.
But they're not
Ebola carriers, right? Yeah.
They're carrying dengue fever with them.
Right.
You join our team, of course, Peter Ogburn and Lisa Murphy. Hey. Hello, guys. Yes, yes. Alicia Cruz, got the phones covered. Waiting for your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And on the video stream, we're there thanks to our videographer, Cyprian Bolding. We have it seems like every day Ohio thinks of another way to celebrate the fact that they're not only getting the Republican National Convention, Cleveland's getting LeBron James back. They have even gone so far, Olivier, now, as Seth Meyers told us last night, to have a state license plate. Here he is.
An Ohio lawmaker wants the state to introduce a new LeBron James license plate. A new LeBron James license plate. It'll be the first license plate honoring an NBA player and made by NFL players.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a little real.
But probably true.
Yeah, exactly.
Although in the Ohio prison, I'm not sure. I don't know about that. Anyhow, Olivier here for the entire week. Hey, welcome.
You're getting your residency here.
I can't get out.
You're not going anywhere, pal.
You see that cot over there?
That's right. That's right. One of the famous Harry Reid filibusters, right?
Yeah.
For the entire hour, as a friend of Bill, We'll be joined by Patrick Oakford from the Center for American Progress at the half hour. But first, before we get into it, Peter's got the big stories of the day.
Yes, indeed. Charlotte Samuels from Ridgewood, California, swam She swam from Catalina Island to Southern California yesterday. Here's the thing. Charlotte Samuels is 16 years old. That is a 20.2-mile swim. I'm sure you've done that swim many times.
No. I made the crossing, but on a ferry boat.
On a ferry boat, yeah, exactly. Whoa. She landed at Rancho Palos Verdes. Took her almost 20 hours to make the swim, which is pretty good time, honestly. 19 hours, 45 minutes. She landed. Her arms red with jellyfish bites or stings she got hit with. So, but she made it. 16 years old.
I know. I hear people doing things like this, and you just say, "God bless them," but why, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, I just reflect on the fact that my main physical activity, my main exercise is jumping to conclusions, and so I kind of envy people who can do that sort of thing.
Scrabble added 5,000 new words to their official players' dictionary. They made the announcement among the 5,000 words.
5,000 that's too many at one time.
It's a lot at once.
I'm
right?
suspicious.
Beatbox, buzzkill, chillax.
No, I'm not okay with chillax.
I'm not okay with chillax.
I'm not okay with chillax.
No, I'm not either. No. Frenemy, funplex is also on there.
What?
Funplex.
No.
I have kids. I don't know what a funplex is. Mojito, which seems like it should be on the list.
I could take mojito.
A lot of schmutz also on the list.
I'm fine with schmutz.
I'm good with schmutz. I like that. Sudoku. There are. But one of the other things that they did is they opened it up to a poll to see which word is not in there that Americans think should be on there. So they put it on Facebook, and that word was put in. It is geocache.
What?
Geocache.
Can we just start making words up in Scrabble yet?
But you know, so what? So now with every game, you get an addendum. You get a list of the 5,000 words that you can.
Words.
Yeah. I'm suspicious.
That's a lot, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And yesterday I mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy, which is the highest, most profitable movie ever in August. Turns out it's also ranking high among females. 44% of the tickets sold to see Guardians of the Galaxy were sold to women. That is the highest number ever for a Marvel movie. Previously, the Avengers had 40% of their tickets sold to women, but this one, 44%.
Potentially a lot of moms.
A lot of moms.
Yeah.
I saw it this weekend. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I saw it.
Get out of
twice.
Here. No, I was going to say, how many times did you see it?
Yeah. Well, I was actually with the woman of our household, so I got to see it once. No, I absolutely loved it.
It's so good,
great.
Right?
It was really fun. It was really smart. It was really good.
Yeah.
And the fact that I had no knowledge of the source material probably helped.
Yeah. It's a really, really well-done comic book movie.
How many times did you see it, Peter?
I just said I saw it twice. My kids begged me to take them again when it was rainy on a Sunday. I said, you know what? Why not? We all enjoyed it. We went back and saw it. It's great. It's so well done.
Do I have to see it?
Yes.
I'll be honest with you. You would. I know that you're not a big fan of comic book movies. You would get such a kick out of this.
Really?
It's a really, really fun movie.
Good. Can I download it and watch it on a plane?
Not yet.
No?
If you go to China, probably.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but I wouldn't.
All right. Thank you, Peter, for bringing us a date on the big stories of the day. Before we get to the serious stuff, or the news stuff, I have to ask you, you and I meet every day in the Brady press briefing room.
Mm-hmm.
James Brady, yesterday, lost him at the age of 73. Mm-hmm. Among the press secretaries, he really did, people still view him as a role model.
And people know him better for what he did after being press secretary than they do for being press secretary, which is a very interesting phenomenon, since for the most part, that's not true of White House press secretaries, but everyone recalls James Brady not just as Ronald Reagan's press secretary who was shot in that assassination attempt on Reagan's life, but also as the guy who spent the next few decades fighting for restrictions on access to guns.
And successfully, you've got the Brady
mostly successfully, because of course it's a back and forth fight now. But it was very touching to see. First of all, I think every living former press secretary co-signing a statement describing him as their mentor and as a role model.
Right.
And so many other folks talking about the fight, the battle that he waged after leaving the White House.
Right. And we weren't around at the time, but the comments that I've read from people who were is that he was people liked him. Reporters liked him. They felt he dealt straight with them. He brought them as much information as he could. Obviously, very smart and a wicked sense of humor.
Right, and at the dawn of really the most modern media wave, right? At the dawn of famously Ronald Reagan embraced television like nobody before him, really. And Brady played a role in the sculpting of a lot of those images, and I think it was, as I said, what really struck me was the before and after, the fact that he's known as well for what he did after the White House as when he was there. But it was nice to see the outpouring of sentiment yesterday.
The New York Times recounts this morning a story I had not heard before, that President Reagan at one time said that trees, air pollution caused by trees was as dangerous as air pollution from power plants or something. And later, a little bit after that, the presidential party, I guess it was on Air Force One, and they flew over. There was a forest fire, and you could look out and see the trees burning. And Brady went through the press section of the plane saying, "Killer trees, killer trees, killer trees." And somebody reported that to the top White House staff, and Brady was suspended for a week.
Aw.
They silenced her for a week.
Every White House has roughly the same sense of humor then, is what you're telling me. Same tolerance for that kind of stuff.
All right. So we were there Friday when we were there for the briefing. We were all set for the briefing. We were told, you don't have any briefing today because the president's going to come out. He wants the time. He said there's a lot of interesting stuff that came out of that. One of the things that you pointed out probably was the least reported, which is what he said about the torture report that's coming up.
Yeah, it was really striking. A lot of people, including me, wanted to talk about his blunt admission that we tortured some folks after 9/11. But really, that wasn't the most important thing that he said. To me, the most important things that he said were that we shouldn't be sanctimonious, quote unquote, sanctimonious about calling for the people who torture to be punished, and that responsibility falls on us as a country. He's made it very clear before that he's not going to be prosecuting the people who did this stuff. The reason it's important for him to say that again now, even as he says, it was definitely torture, is that we're about to see this, parts of this Senate Intelligence Committee majority report on torture. But that was really important. Basically, what he's saying is no, still not. Still not going to prosecute. Still not going to do it.
And yet he's admitting we did it. It was against the law. So what's the rationale or the excuse or the defense for not prosecuting?
Well, you're right. I mean, this boils down to, if you may have heard of a pocket veto, which is when the president just holds on to a bill and doesn't sign it and it lapses when the Congress does. This is essentially his pocket immunity, right? Just saying that you're not going to prosecute folks that under international and American law you're required to prosecute. Rationale's really been twofold. One is that the Justice Department has several times now come back and said that it can't come up with enough evidence to be sure that it can convict these folks. And the other is that, and you heard it in the president's remarks on Friday, he thinks that it was just a bad decision made in the incredibly supercharged atmosphere after 9/11. So those are really the two prongs of the decision not to prosecute.
Is this the report that the Senate Intelligence Committee is going to release or has completed, right?
Right.
So how much of it are we really going to see?
Shockingly little is probably the answer to that. Right now the report's delayed by a fight between the Senate Intelligence Committee Democrats, the authors of the report, and the CIA over the quantity and the quality of the redactions. The famous black markings. And the Senate Intelligence Committee Democrats are saying that they cut way too much, and CIA says, gee whiz, we left 85% of this untouched. One of the problems, though, is that they didn't leave 85% of this untouched. They didn't just redact 15%. We're already not getting the full report. We're already getting only, findings, conclusions. We're not getting the body of the report. So what they're actually saying is we've left, I think, independent national security writer Marcy Wheeler, I think, has figured it out that it's about 6.2% of the report is going to be made public.
Wow. Now, this is the same Senate Intelligence Committee on which the CIA spied, about which the president also spoke on Friday, going out of his way even after he was leaving the room, to come back to take the podium again and defend John Brennan.
Yeah,
why?
The president said he has full confidence in John Brennan, which at this point in John Brennan's career is not something I can completely explain, because we've had several problems with Mr. Brennan's public comments about several things. Early on, we had John Brennan coming out after the bin Laden raid and giving a version of the raid that turned out to be, wildly inaccurate.
You and I were there. Yeah, absolutely.
And then we had John Brennan come out and say there are never, ever any civilian deaths from American drone strikes. People forget that one, but he did come out and say that. He had to correct it.
That's a doozy.
I forgot that one.
He had to come out and say later, well, I haven't seen any convincing evidence. I mean, it was he had to really parse it. And then recently he came out and said, there is absolutely no evidence. What a spurious allegation that the CIA spied on Senate staff.
We would never have done anything like that.
Never would have done this. Completely spurious allegation, outrageous, the rest of it. Well, now the Inspector General of the CIA says, hey, actually, it turns out, it did happen. Basically, just to be absolutely clear, it looks like CIA officials were monitoring the Senate staff using a CIA computer specially designated for them at a CIA facility to review CIA documents. I don't mean to parse this. I know that the CIA wants us to get a little bit hung up on that detail. But when you talk about spying on the Senate, just to be clear, they're not, as far as we know, they're not breaking into computers on Capitol Hill. But they are effectively interfering with the investigation.
Right. And so I was wondering when he said that, is this sort of the Shinseki approach, that first you express full confidence in him and then you throw him under the bus?
Well, that's the pattern for like the last four presidents, right?
Right.
Full confidence is usually a 48-hour death march. But in this case, let's not forget that the president nominated John Brennan to be the director of the CIA, even knowing that the last time he did that, John Brennan had to withdraw from consideration because of his role in helping to craft the very interrogation techniques that we're talking about. He did that even though John Brennan had said that stuff about bin Laden. He did that. John Brennan is probably the key architect of Obama's drone strike policy. So he knew that he was wading into a potential minefield with John Brennan. He comes out, he says full confidence. Let's see how that shakes out. I think everyone's waiting and watching to see what happens to the CIA staffers that the Inspector General said misbehaved.
That's what I was wondering as well. Olivier Knox here with us from Yahoo News at yahoonews.com. We'll be right back here. Stay with us on the Tuesday edition of the Bill Press Show. Go ahead.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Oh, you're such a dork, loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look, your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When some people struggle with their mortgage payments, they become frozen, petrified. Not knowing what to do, they do nothing. But the people who take action are far more likely to get the most positive outcome. Making home affordable is a free government program. Call now to talk one-on-one with a housing expert about the options that are right for you. Real help, real answers, right now.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we have pep talkers standing by to get you motivated for your GED diploma.
Text the name Terry to 69222 for a sympathetic pep talk.
You show people what you really are.
Or for a gentle pep talk, text the name Deborah.
You know you're going to make people very proud of you.
And if that's not enough, text the name Danny for an extreme pep talk.
Prove everyone wrong. Show them you're the boss.
Get your GED pep talk and find free GED classes. Text the name of the person you want a pep talk from to 69222.
Did you see the world differently? Did you celebrate the victory?
So today, I state clearly and with conviction America's commitment to seek the peace and security of a world without nuclear weapons.
Did you stand up against our greatest threat? Change the world.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go. Olivier Knox here as a friend of Bill this hour. We'll be joined at the half by Patrick Oakford from the Center for American Progress. We only have about 30 seconds here. Tell me, what's going to be achieved by this Africa summit? Anything?
It's a really good question. You know, the president's going to announce that American companies have made a commitment to invest about $14 billion. We don't know in what countries. We don't know precisely in what sectors. The White House says, you know, in energy and information technology and the rest of it. But the big thing here is energy, in other words, oil and gas versus non-energy. We don't know what the breakdown is. That's going to be important. And there's a symbolic component to this, which is we're not giving the continent up to China because China's really been investing a lot of aid and a lot of regular investment in Africa.
Right. The president stressed that again on Friday with Olivier Knox.
This
and back
is the
Center
Bill
for American
Press
Progress
Show.
joining us.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 33 minutes after the hour, Tuesday, August 5, coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Olivier Knox is here. Covers the White House for Yahoo News. He's here as a friend to Bill this entire hour. And Olivier, we haven't gotten to the issue of immigration yet. The President talked about that on Friday as well. To get into that area, we are joined, get the assistance of Patrick Oakford, who is a policy analyst for economic policy and immigration at the Center for American Progress. Hey, Patrick, good to see you.
Thanks so much for having me on.
So Republicans went home without doing, Congress went home, let's not all blame it on Congress, went home without doing anything about this current crisis, humanitarian crisis at the border, nor doing anything about comprehensive immigration reform. What's next?
Well, when they come back, the problem's still going to be here, right? We have seen...
But is anything going to happen while they're gone, I guess is what I'm getting to.
While they're gone, we're still going to see unaccompanied children arriving at our borders, right. And these kids are going to need humanitarian relief. The administration is doing everything they can right now to provide them with the relief that they need in terms of screening them, finding out if they have credible fears, and they are eligible for asylum here in the United States. But the reality of the situation, Bill, is that resources are running out really quickly, and the administration has the authority and the capabilities to handle this situation, but Congress needs to give them some money to actually fund the agencies that need to deal with this, right? So DHS needs more money. HHS needs more money. These are kids that need to be adequately screened by professionals. We need to place them in facilities to hold them while they wait for a court date. Our immigration courts right now are backlogged. It's over 500 days to wait to get a court date, right? So we need more immigration judges. We need more people who are assisting the courts. The administration knows what to do, has a plan to do it. It just needs the money to do that. And that's where Congress has to come in. And sadly, the House didn't give him what he wanted. Senate had a great proposal up. $2.7 billion. It was blocked on procedural votes by Republicans. And then in the House, Republicans came back and said, we'll give you just under $700 million. The president said this is going to cost $3.7 billion. They came back with just under $700 million. That's not even 20% of what he needs, right? So they left town without solving the problem, and it's going to be here when he comes back.
But Olivier, the White House and the president himself has talked about they're looking at maybe taking some executive action while Congress, well, maybe not while Congress is out of town, but
no, probably not while Congress is out of town, actually. But one of the things that the president said at this Friday press conference was that he now felt the need to act alone or without Congress, I should say. And I guess what I'd love to know is, one, what's left in the executive quiver? Like, what can he do? And there's a lot of talk about reprogramming funds. First of all, why is that a legal avenue of action? I mean, if Congress presumably allocates money to a given program, why can it be moved to another? And where's the money coming from?
Right. So on Friday, the White House announced that what they are doing is reprogramming some funds. This is a procedure that's really common across all agencies, right? Yes, Congress appropriates money to different agencies, but they also let them have a little bit of wiggle room, right? So they can reprogram some funds from one, kind of sub-agency to another. So on Friday, the administration announced that $400 million will be reprogrammed. Some of it is going to be coming from FEMA, and this money is going to be going to ICE and some of the Border Patrol. So really trying to give some of the funds to the, individuals in DHS who are actually on the ground dealing with the kids at the border. Some of the money that is needed is expected to run out by mid-August, right? That's why the administration turned to Congress and said, hey, we need more money. Congress said, we're not giving it to you.
So they can legally take money from one pot and move it to another pot? Is that what you're saying?
Short answer, yes. They can't take it from any pot, right?
But,
so, you can't go over to a completely different agency. But there is a little bit of wiggle room. And I'm not a budget expert, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But there is some room for them to move some funds around, and they've done that. $400 million on Friday.
Interesting that when the president talked about this, he did talk about the irony of some now Republicans calling on him to take executive action. If you recall how it was kind of funny how he phrased it.
They voted to sue me for acting on my own. And then when they couldn't pass a bill yesterday, they put out a statement suggesting I should act on my own because they couldn't pass a bill.
So politically, who comes out on top of this, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, the over the medium term, I think national Republicans have the most to lose. The people who want the party to stay a national force, the people who are looking at the party's long-term prospects. Maybe not. I think some of the 2016 coverage is a little bit overwritten. But down the line, we know the demographics are not great for the Republican Party. The Republicans know that the demographics are not great for the Republican Party. So in the near term, I think both sides are finding their feet and are not unhappy with, politically not unhappy with the way things are going. House Republicans don't face the same constraints as national Republicans do. Over the medium term, though, if you're a Republican who's thinking of running for president in 2016 or in 2020, you have to be very concerned about the pathway that the Congress is on.
And when you look at the percentage of the vote that George W. Bush got and compare that to what John McCain got, which was even less. I mean, Bush was 44, McCain, I think, was maybe 38, and Mitt Romney was 21, 20.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in this trend, right? I don't think it's going to end anytime soon. As you say, the demographic changes. If we look at just the Latino electorate, right? So between 2012 and 2016, 3.3 million Latinos will turn 18 and be eligible to vote, right? Now, of those 3.3 million, 60% come from an immigrant household. These are kids who are going to the polling booth for the very first time, and they have lived the immigrant experience. Maybe their brother or sister is undocumented. Maybe their parent is undocumented. So they have seen and felt the negative impact that our broken immigration system has on the families. And then they've seen for 4 years Republicans refusing to do anything to fix it. And then they're going to go into the polling booth in 2016. I'm going to wager the bet that they're going to vote for the party that has been trying to help them over the last few years.
The most interesting comment that I've seen on this, getting to your point about the short term versus the medium term, if you will, is that you're right, in the House, at least, they could care less, because for the House races that they need to control the House.
Yeah, demographics aren't there.
The demographics are not there.
Yeah.
They have a very small Latino, the way the districts have been drawn, very far Latino votes. Mo Brooks, I don't know whether you saw this, Olivier. Mo Brooks is a Republican from Alabama. He thinks this is actually hurting Democrats more than Republicans, because it amounts to a Democratic war on white people. By doing something about immigration, the Democrats are waging a war on white people.
Well, there's one way to win the August recess in terms of media coverage. But I mean, I think one of the things, and I just want to squeeze this point in because I think it's so important. But the most important political dynamic in America today is the House Republican majority, right? That's the most important dynamic. The re-election rates for House Republicans, that is still across the board the most important political dynamic in the country. It explains so much about what is happening and is not happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know whether it tips over in 2016 or not, because I think a lot of those House people are still going to think, well, I need to worry about my right flank in my district and not worry about. It's not my job to worry about how Rick Perry does in the Iowa caucus. It's not my job to worry about this or that. So I'm really watching keenly to see whether at some point that tips over.
I don't think it does, and I don't think they care. I mean, John Boehner has in effect said, "Okay, we don't care about 2016. I care about 2014 and holding on to the House." I don't know that he said that publicly, but pretty clearly,
his actions say that.
His actions say that, and his focus is on maintaining control of the House and therefore his job.
But he is the fulcrum for all of this, right? I mean, if it's going to tip over, it's going to probably start with John Boehner, because he's worried about 2014. He's worried about his potential reelection if he decides to stand for reelection as Speaker in 2015, and then after that, are we going to see a tip over? But I don't. John Boehner's been around a long time. He's from the deal-making wing of the Republican Party. I say that as a positive thing, not as a negative thing.
I agree.
He was an education policy guy for a really long time. Yep. Worked with Democrats on education issues for a long time. I feel sort of silly saying feel sorry for John Boehner, but he is in an unbelievable bind between. He knows what the national trends are. He knows what the party needs to do to have a chance at the White House. He knows all this stuff, and he's in an incredible bind.
He also knows.
He's in a bind, but ultimately it's up to him. If he wants to, he's the one holding the gavel, right? If he wants to call votes on certain things like immigration reform, he can. And so
right.
I think saying that he's in a bind is actually giving him more of an out than what he is in. Well, I don't think it's there. Ultimately, he could have moved. He could have moved a bill. Do these things.
He could have done what he's done in the past on some other legislation and bring up a bill that would get 30 Republican votes.
Like he did on the Violence Against Women Act.
Right, and get a majority of Democrats. Of course he could. I just sort of want us to acknowledge that he's not.
And he would cement his own legacy of being a speaker who looked at not only the short-term, success of the party, but the long-term success and the future of the Republican Party. And honestly, I think if he was brave enough to step up and call a vote on it, he would be better positioning himself for the long term than what he's doing right now, which is, kind of a toss-up of whether or not he's positioning himself well, but also cementing the demise of the Republican Party for the White House in 2016.
Well, I don't know. I don't know that he wants to roll the dice on that if prospects in the Senate are really cloudy, which they are. Senate did pass comprehensive immigration reform. What happens in a midterm election year if the House sends them? Let's take comprehensive immigration off the table for a second.
Yeah.
Just talking about this border supplemental. So what happens if House votes on the border supplemental with mostly Democratic votes, goes to the Senate, and then what happened? You pointed out yourself, it went down. They used procedural tactics to obstruct it. Why would he want to stick his neck out if it's not going to happen? Nancy Pelosi had the same problem with climate change. By the way, she made her rank and file take that vote. People close to her later blamed it for costing Democratic seats in that midterm election. And it went nowhere. So why would John Boehner want? I realize I'm being a little cynical here, but why would John Boehner want to stick his neck out if it's going to go to the Senate to die?
Well, I mean, I think one, the issue of the humanitarian, kids at the border is a very different political dynamic than immigration reform, right? So this has come up like that really quickly in the last 2 months or so, whereas immigration reform, they've had the opportunity to really kind of mull it over and think about what the long-term chess game is, and he hasn't moved. He didn't make his play.
No. But in that case, I think clearly John Boehner did not want to leave without doing something about the kids at the border.
But he didn't do anything. I mean, in practice, he didn't do anything.
No, but they got a bill. They dumbed down a bill to the point where, like, you would think the Tea Party would be happy with it, and then Ted Cruz came in, whipped against it, and they couldn't even. John Boehner couldn't even get the votes for his bill.
Their bill was.
There's another factor going on with John Boehner too. Is Eric Cantor. He knows what's happened to Eric Cantor, showing any flexibility at all on this issue. Great discussion here about immigration with Patrick Oakford from the Center for American Progress and Olivier Knox from Yahoo News. Your thoughts, your comments on what John Boehner or the president could do. I'm going to get back into what the president might do too when we come back. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 10 minutes before the top of the hour, in studio with us, Olivier Knox, as a friend of Bill the entire hour. It's good to have you here. Let's get Olivier. Thanks.
Thanks for the coffee, Bill.
That's what you get. And worth the trip across town. And Patrick Oakford from the Center for American Progress. So my question is, what is the president going to do, and why would he wait until Congress comes back? Why not? It's pretty clear Congress is not going to do anything. Why not act now? Patrick?
So, I mean, if we're talking about his actions on immigration reform, right, I think he was giving Congress, and specifically Speaker Boehner, the room and time that he asked for, right? So early in the beginning of the year, Speaker Boehner said, I'm going to do this. Our party can do this. We want to do this. And the president said, okay, I'm going to give you the space and time to do it. He didn't do it.
They're gone. They didn't do it. So why not act?
So now he has announced earlier this summer that Secretary Johnson and Attorney General are going to come back to him with recommendations by the end of the summer on specific actions that he can take to begin fixing our immigration system, right? So some of those programs, and I think the most important is a deferred action program, right? So what this would do is allow undocumented immigrants to come forward, register with the government, and apply for a temporary reprieve from deportation. So basically the government would say, we agree that we're not going to deport you for, say, 2 years. And then they would also get, and this is, I think, equally important, a temporary work permit. So these undocumented immigrants who are already here, already working in our economy, are able to legally work and legally pay taxes, right? So a big boost to our payroll tax rolls.
So, but an amazing incentive to anyone who's ever thought about coming here to work, right?
No, I don't think so, because just as there was a deferred action program for the Dreamers, right? So the kids who came here as undocumented immigrants, there's a cutoff date to the program. So it says you're eligible for this program if you were in the country before, let's say, June of 2014.
How many million?
So anyone who isn't in the country before then is not eligible for that. So there is no incentive for individuals to come.
How many millions of people are we talking about?
So the number of undocumented immigrants who are here longer than 5 years, so 5 years or longer, is 9.9 million. Okay, so over longer than 10 years, it's 7 million.
All right. But
if you
can see what's going to say, right? He gave amnesty to 9 million people.
I see a political problem, and I think I see an immigration policy problem, which is one like this is not actually a pun, but it will get lost in translation as it trickles back down to some of the populations in Central and South America.
I disagree.
I don't think it will.
Right. No, I don't.
There are posters all throughout Latin America that basically say, go to the United States and Obama will welcome you there. Right?
There's also ads right now in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador run by the administration saying don't come, right? So I think if we're going to point out the ads, we got to point out both.
Absolutely. Right. But if you regularize, but if the news headlines say, temporary work permits for 9 million people, and then there's the other question is, does that shift them into the regular economy away from jobs that they might be doing now, not legally? And therefore, do you see another demand for other people to fill the jobs?
Right, and a lot of economists have asked that exact question, right? I think it's an important one, especially when our economy is still slowly recovering from the recession, right? And economists have looked at, would this take jobs away from Americans? And the answer unequivocally is no. And the reason is because immigrants and Americans are substitutes. They don't do the same jobs.
That's not quite the question I'm asking, though. I'm asking that if you... Sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, no, it's the clock that I'm looking at. I just also want to point out, to do this before the midterm elections would be a big political problem.
This is why he's waiting till after August, by the way. Because he wants to juxtapose it with
if he's doing that, he might want to wait till after November.
The big challenge, though, is there are going to be a lot of town hall meetings in August. There are going to be a lot of anti-immigration groups that are going to pressure members of Congress throughout August. So they're going to come back even more resolved.
All right, that's it. Olivier, great to see you. Thank you. See you a little bit later at the briefing at the White House. Patrick, good for coming in, fighting
Thanks
the good
for
fight.
having me.
Thanks so much, and I'll be back quickly and wrap it up.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, How have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
All right, that wraps it up for this Tuesday, August 5. Not even a time for a parting shot. Busy times here in our nation's capital. Go out and have a great Tuesday wherever you happen to be in this great land of ours. Keep your eye on the news, and whatever you might miss, we will wrap it all up for you tomorrow. The news of the day. Look forward to seeing you then. Have a good one.
This is the Bill Press Show.